They offered Earth kindness once in. Humanity made them eternal in myth. The signal came on a Tuesday morning in March 2147. It was not like the random noise from distant stars that scientists had listened to for centuries. This signal had a pattern, it had meaning, it was calling to Earth. T stood in the command center of the United Nations Space Command, watching the screens with cold eyes. He was 60 years old with gray hair and a face marked by too many difficult decisions. As an admiral, he had spent his life preparing for threats from space, asteroids, solar flares, rogue colonies, but never this, never. Message from something intelligent and unknown. It's getting closer, said Hannah, the young woman standing beside him. She was the best language expert Earth had, barely 30 years old, with bright eyes that saw patterns where others saw chaos. The signal is moving. Whatever is sending it is coming toward us. Tay felt his jaw tighten. How long? Until it reaches Earth. 3 weeks, maybe less. On Mars, a young colonist named Juan Bin was outside the dome when he saw it first. He was checking the water recyclers, a boring job that kept the colony alive. The red dust stretched forever in every direction. Mars was humanity's first real home beyond Earth. But it was a hard home. People died here from simple mistakes. Juan Bin looked up at the stars, something he did every day, but today something was different. There was a new light near Jupiter. It was not a star, it was moving. Do you see that? He said into his radio. See what? His supervisor replied. That light near Jupiter, it wasn't there yesterday. There was a long pause, then his supervisor's voice came back tight with tension. Get inside now, everyone. Inside, locked down the dome. The object arrived on a Thursday. It appeared near Jupiter's orbit, and it was massive. Not massive like a ship, massive like a city, like a mountain. The thing was bigger than Earth's moon, but it moved with grace and purpose through space. Every telescope on Earth and Mars turned toward it. Every screen showed the same impossible image. The object was not made of metal or stone. It seemed to be made of light itself, shaped into curves and spirals that hurt to look at for too long. Colors shifted across its surface, colors that had no names in any human language. Is it a weapon? Asked the UN Secretary General. Tay stared at the image. I don't know, but we should prepare for the worst. Prepare with what? The Secretary General replied bitterly. We have 3 military ships that can leave Earth orbit. That thing could swallow them whole. The object moved closer. It stopped at the edge of Earth's solar system just beyond Neptune. Then it sent another signal. This time there were images. Mathematics, chemistry, biology. It was teaching humanity how to understand it. Hannah worked for 3 days without sleep. She drank coffee until her hands shook. But she kept working. The other scientists thought she was crazy, but she saw something they did not. The message was not just information. It was an invitation. It was a greeting. They want to talk, she told Tay. They want something. Tay corrected. Nothing comes this far for a conversation, but Hannah was right. On the 4th day, a smaller object separated from the massive ship. It was the size of a house, shaped like a teardrop made of crystal. It moved toward Earth slowly, carefully. It stopped in orbit right above the International Space Station. Then they appeared. The Vani emerged from their crystal ship in suits that seemed to be made of liquid starlight. They were tall and thin with bodies that looked almost human but were not quite right. Their skin was translucent and light moved beneath it like blood. Their eyes were too large, too bright, holding depths of knowledge and time. Through the space station's cameras, Hana watched them move. They were graceful like dancers. They moved without fear or aggression. When they touched the station's walls, lights appeared under their fingers, patterns that looked like writing or music or mathematics all at once. Hello. Hana transmitted in every language Earth had, in every mathematical formula she could think of. The Vanni responded. Immediately, their reply came not as sound but as pure understanding, translated somehow directly into meaning. The scientists said it was impossible, but it happened anyway. We are, the message said. We have watched your species for 3,000 of your years. We have seen you grow from stone tools to starships. We have seen your wars and your peace, your cruelty and your compassion. We come now with a gift. Admiral T had forward in his chair. What kind of gift? Technology, the Vanni responded. Knowledge, the tools to cure your diseases, to extend your lives, to give you energy without limit. We offer this freely. Why? Tay asked the question that burned in everyone's mind. What do you want in return? The Vanni's response came slowly, as if they were considering their words carefully. We want nothing. This is kindness, pure and simple. We are an old species. We have seen 1,000 civilizations rise and fall. We have learned that the universe is hard and cold. When we find a species with potential, with hope, we offer help. That is our purpose. The world erupted in debate. Half of humanity wanted to accept immediately. They saw salvation in the stars. They saw an end to suffering. The other half screamed warnings. They remembered every story about gifts that came with hidden costs, about deals with devils, about Trojan horses. Tay met with the world's leaders. We don't know these beings, he said. We don't know their history, their motives. This could be a trap or it could save billions of lives, replied the Chinese premier. My people die from diseases we cannot cure. They suffer from poverty we cannot end, if there is even a chance. This is real. We must take it. In the end, humanity decided, as humanity always did, with hope winning over fear by the smallest margin. They accepted the gift. The Vanni sent down 3 crystal seeds, each one the size of a car. One went to Earth, one to Mars, one to Europa, where humanity had just started a small base. They showed humanity how to activate them, how to let them grow, use them wisely. The Villani said, learn from them. They will teach you what you need to know. When will you return? Hana asked. She had developed something like friendship with the Vanni ambassadors. Over the weeks of contact, the reply was strange. We will return when you need us, or when you no longer do. But no, this, young ones, we give you this gift because you will need strength. The universe is not empty. It is not peaceful. We give you tools. What you make of them will define your species. Then they were gone. The crystal ship moved away from Earth, accelerating ways that violated physics. Within 3 days, it had left the solar system entirely. Within a week, it had vanished from even the most powerful telescopes. On Mars, W. Bin stood in the dome and watched the sky. The strange light was gone, but in the center of the colony, one of the crystal seeds was beginning to glow, beginning to grow, beginning to change everything. Admiral Tay stood in his office on Earth, looking at the crystal seed that now sat in a facility In Geneva, scientists surrounded it. Studying it, learning from it, he felt a weight in his chest that he could not name. They seemed kind, Hannah said. Beside him, they seemed genuine. Maybe they were, Tay replied, but kind people don't give weapons to children unless they know a wolf is coming. He looked up at the stars, at the infinite darkness beyond Earth's fragile atmosphere. So where is the wolf? He whispered. The crystal seeds glowed brighter. Humanity's future had begun, but Admiral Tay could not shake the feeling that they had just accepted not a gift but a test, and somewhere in the dark between stars, something was already moving toward them. The crystal seeds changed everything, but they did it slowly at first, like a flower opening one petal at a time. Jiho was the first person to really understand them. He was a young engineer from Seoul, barely 25, who had always seen the world in patterns and systems. When they brought him to the facility in Geneva to study the Vanny seed, he spent the first week just watching it. The seed was beautiful. It sat in the center of a clean white room, glowing with soft blue light. It was warm to the touch, but not hot. It hummed with a sound that was more feeling than noise, and every day it grew a little bigger. It's alive, Jiho told the other scientists, not like a plant or animal, but it has awareness. It knows we're here. That's impossible, said the lead researcher, an older woman from Germany. It's technology. What if technology and life are the same thing? For the J replied he was right. On the 30th day, the seed opened, not like cracking an egg, but like water flowing upward. The crystal material spread across the floor, up the walls, creating patterns of light and structure. Where it touched equipment, that equipment changed, improved, became something more. The first miracle was medical. A researcher named Sman was working in the facility's lab when the crystal patterns reached her microscope. The patterns flowed into the machine, and suddenly she could see things no human had ever seen before. Individual atoms, the bonds between molecules, the way diseases worked at the smallest possible level. Within a week, Smin had cured the common cold. Within a month, she had eliminated 3 types of cancer. Within 6 months, humanity had solutions to almost every disease that had ever killed people. The crystal technology taught them, guided them, showed them how to heal. It's like having a teacher that knows exactly what you need to learn, Sman said during a news interview. Her face was tired but glowing with joy. They didn't just give us answers, they gave us a tool that helps us find our own answers. On Mars, Hwan Bin watched his colony transform. The crystal seed there had grown into structures that looked like trees made of light. They produced oxygen. They created water from the Martian soil. They generated more power than the entire colony could use. The population of Mars began to grow. Ships arrived every week now, bringing people who wanted to start new lives. Hwan Bin, who had been a simple technician, became a trainer. He taught newcomers how to work with Thay technology, how to listen to it, how to let it teach you. It's strange, he told his sister over a video call to Earth. The technology doesn't force you to do anything, it suggests it. Shows possibilities, but you still have to make choices. You still have to be human. His sister smiled. Maybe that's the point. The man who changed everything was named Dion. He was the governor of Mars, a politician who had always dreamed of seeing humanity spread across the stars. When the technology proved safe and revolutionary. He made a bold proposal. We should expand, he said, in a speech that was broadcast across 2 worlds, not just Mars, not just a few colonies. We should go everywhere to the moons of Jupiter, to Saturn, to every place in our solar system where humans could live. The Vanny gave us the tools, let us use them. It took 5 years. But D. Hun's dream became real. By 2152, humans lived on Europa, mining the ice for water and using Vanny technology to create warm habitats beneath the frozen surface. They lived on Titan, where the thick atmosphere and liquid methane lakes became resources instead of obstacles. They even began settlements on Venus, using the crystal technology to float cities in the planet's upper atmosphere. Humanity exploded outward like a flower opening to the sun. And everywhere they went, they remembered the Vanny. An artist named Bora created the first memorial. She worked on Earth in the place where the Vanny ship had first appeared in the sky, using a mixture of traditional sculpture and Vanny crystal technology. She built a monument that stretched 50 m into the air. It showed the Anani ambassadors reaching down to touch humanity's outstretched hands. The crystal portions glowed at night, visible for Killam. We must never forget who helped us, Bora said at the monument's dedication. They came in peace. They asked for nothing. They gave us everything. How many species in the universe would do that? The monument of first light, as people called it, became a place of pilgrimage. People came from all over Earth to touch its base, to feel the warmth of the crystal, to remember the day the stars reached out with kindness. But it was not just one monument. In every city and every colony, humans built shrines and markers to remember the Vanny. Some were simple plaques. Others were great works of art. On Mars, Wanbin helped build a circle of crystal pillars that sang with the wind. On Europa, settlers carved the first message into the ice itself, letters 10 m tall that glowed with embedded light. They became part of human culture in ways both profound and simple. Parents named their children after Vanny words. Musicians created symphonies inspired by the harmonics of the crystal technology. Religions began to incorporate the into their teachings. Some called them angels, others said they were bodhisattvas, enlightened beings who helped others reach enlightenment. Still, others saw them as proof that the universe was fundamentally good. Hana, who had first spoken to the watched all of this with mixed feelings. She was now 35 years old, respected as the foremost expert on communication. But she often thought about their last words, about needing strength, about the universe not being peaceful. Does anyone else remember that they warned us? She asked Tay one evening. They had remained friends over the years, meeting occasionally to talk about the changes sweeping across human civilization. Tay, now 65 and officially retired, nodded. Slowly, I remember, but people don't want to hear warnings when everything is going well. Look around us, Hana. Disease is almost gone. Hunger is ending. We're spreading across the solar system. This is the golden age of humanity. Golden ages don't last, Hana said quietly. No, Tay agreed. They don't. For years passed since the Vanny left. Humanity continued to grow and change. The population reached 15 billion, but now they were spread across dozens of worlds and moons. Resources were abundant. Energy was clean and limitless. People lived longer Healthier lives, children grew up, learning to work with technology as naturally as previous generations had. Learned to use computers, some things stayed the same though. Humans still argued, still competed, still had conflicts, but now they had the resources and knowledge to resolve problems without war. The Ani gift had not made humanity perfect, it had made them capable, and through it all, the Vani did not return. No messages, no signal, just silence. From the stars, some people worried. Most did not. The Vani had given their gift and left. Perhaps that was simply their way. Perhaps they visited many species across the galaxy, spreading kindness and knowledge wherever they went. In 2152, 7 years after the Vallani first arrived, Earth's deep space sensor network picked up something new. It was far out beyond the orbit of Pluto, but it was approaching multiple objects. Hundreds of them, then thousands. The signal was not like the message. It was cold, mechanical, empty of anything resembling kindness or curiosity. Hana was the first to see the report. She was working late in her office in Geneva, analyzing old Vallani transmissions when the alert came through. Her hands went cold as she read the data. She called Tai immediately. He was at home enjoying retirement on a small farm in Korea. "They're here," she said without introduction. "Who?" Tai asked, but there was no confusion in his voice. He knew. He had always known that this moment would come. "I don't know who they are," Hana replied, "but they're not friendly. The Vani gave us their gift because of this. I'm sure of it now." Tai was quiet for a long moment. In the background, Hana could hear birds singing. Simple Earth birds living their simple Earth lives, unaware that everything was about to change. "How long until they reach us?" Tai asked. 6 months, maybe less if they accelerate. Then we have 6 months to remember that the Vani gave us more than medicine and energy," Tai said. His voice was steady. The voice of an admiral again. "They gave us potential, time to see what we can do with it." Hana looked out her window at the monument of first light glowing in the darkness. "We've spent 7 years building memorials to peace. I think we're about to learn why they gave us something that could be so much more. The golden age was ending, something else was beginning, and somewhere in the cold dark between stars and ancient evil moved toward humanity's new and fragile civilization. They had offered kindness once. Now humanity would discover why. The ships came out of the dark like locusts descending on a field. Captain Yan Wu saw them first. He commanded the UNS Horizon, one of humanity's newest deep space vessels patrolling the outer solar system. His ship was beautiful, built with Vallani technology, capable of speeds that would have been impossible just a decade ago. He was proud of it. That pride died when his sensors showed him what was coming. "Captain, we're reading multiple contacts," his sensor officer said. Her voice was shaking. "No. Hundreds of contacts. Thousands, sir. I think the system is malfunctioning." Hyan Wu looked at the display. His stomach went cold. "The system is working fine. Send an emergency broadcast. All frequencies, get this to Earth now." The objects were ships, but not like any ships humans had built. They were angular, brutal things made of dark metal and aggressive lines. They moved in perfect formation like a school of fish or a flock of birds. Each ship was connected to the others by something invisible, something that made them move as one mind. They're not responding to Hales, the communications officer, reported, "I've tried every language. Every protocol, nothing. Try the Villani. Frequencies Haiyan Wu ordered, they tried." The response came immediately. But it was not words, it was a burst of data, raw and overwhelming, that crashed their communication system when the engineer rebooted at a single message. Displayed on every screen, "You will be consumed. Resistance is irrelevant." Haiyan Wu felt his jaw clench. "Battle stations, charge all weapons and get me a line to Fleet Command, now on Earth." Admiral Tay was pulled out of retirement. In an emergency session, the meeting room was full of people younger than him, officers who had never fought a real battle. They had trained for disasters, for accidents, but not for war. "Not for this. They're called the Kuresh," said Nari, a young strategic officer with sharp eyes. She had been studying the data since the first contact, at least that's what we found. In the Vanni database, the crystal technology has information about thousands of species. The Cares are listed as a level 9 threat. "What does that mean?" asked the UN Secretary General. "It means extinction level," T said quietly. He had been reading the same reports. The Kesh are a hive mind. Billions of individual machines, controlled by one consciousness. They consume everything, planets, stars, entire civilizations. They've been doing it for millions of years. The room went silent. "How many civilizations have they destroyed?" someone asked. Nari pulled up a holographic display. Names appeared. Thousands of them, each one a species that had once lived and dreamed and built, each one now just dust in space. In this region of the galaxy alone, 47 confirmed extinctions, maybe more. The records are incomplete. Why are they coming here? The Secretary General demanded. "Why now?" Tay looked at the star map showing the Kesh fleet's trajectory. "Because we're here, because we exist. That's all the reason they need. They consume everything in their path. We're just next in line." Una, a scientist who had worked with the technology for years, stood up. She was nervous speaking in front of so many important people, but her voice was clear. The Vanni knew. They knew this was coming. That's why they gave us their technology to fight. Tay asked. "Maybe, or maybe just to survive long enough to matter." Una pulled up detailed schematics of the crystal systems. "I've been analyzing the technology since it arrived. Everyone thinks it's just for peaceful purposes, medicine, energy, construction, but that's not all it can do. The underlying systems are adaptable, incredibly adaptable. It's like they gave us clay and showed us how to make cups, but clay can make weapons too." Tay leaned forward. "Are you saying we can weaponize the technology?" "I'm saying it was always capable of being a weapon. They just never showed us that side. They showed us healing because that's what we needed first, but now..." Una's hands trembled slightly. "Now we need something else." The first battle happened near Neptune. Captain Hunu's ship met the Kersh Vanguard with humanity's full military strength, 32 ships, the largest fleet humanity had ever assembled, against 3,000 Kersh vessels. It was a massacre. The human ships opened fire first. Missiles and energy weapons that had seemed powerful during tests and training exercises. They hit the Kersh ships and did nothing. The enemy vessels absorbed the impacts like rocks thrown into an ocean. Then the Kersh returned fire. Their weapons were not lasers or missiles. They were something worse. streams of nano machines that ate through hull armor like acid through paper. When they touched a ship, that ship began to dissolve, metal turned to dust, systems failed, people died, screaming as their vessel fell apart. Around them, Hien Wu watched 3 of his ships die in the first 60 seconds. Retreat, he ordered, all ships fall back to Mars, we need to regroup. But the Kersh were faster, they pursued the fleeing human ships, picking them off one by one. Of the 32 ships that engaged the enemy, only 8 made it back to Mars. Yan Wu's ship was one of them, but just barely. Half his crew was dead. His ship was held together by emergency patches and prayers. When he limped into Mars orbit, he sent one message to Earth: we can't fight them, not like this, they'll destroy us all. On Earth, Nari worked without sleep. She had watched the battle through the data feeds, watched humanity's military get torn apart like children fighting wolves. Now she stood in front of Admiral Tay with a plan that terrified her. We need to change everything, she said. Our tactics, our weapons, our ships, everything we know about war is useless against the Kersh. We don't have time to rebuild our entire fleet. Tay replied, we don't need to rebuild it, we need to transform it. Nari pulled up Yuna's research. The Vallani technology can change on the molecular level, it can adapt. What if we stopped thinking of our ships as machines and started thinking of them as living things that can evolve? Tay stared at the data. It was radical, dangerous. It meant fundamentally changing what it meant to be human technology. But as he watched the Kersh fleet moving closer to Mars, closer to Earth, he realized they had no choice. Do it, he said. Tell Yuna she has full authorization. Whatever she needs, whatever it takes. Yuna worked with Jiho and a team of hundreds. They took the Vallani crystal technology and asked it a question they had never asked before. Not how do we heal, but how do we fight? The technology answered. It showed them how to make ships that could repair themselves in real time, how to create weapons that learned from each attack and adapted, how to build armor that got stronger when it was hit, how to connect human minds with machine systems to react faster than any AI. But it came with a cost. The changes required integration. The ships would not be separate from their crews, they would be part of each other. Pilots would have to accept modifications to their bodies, to their minds. They would become something new, something hybrid, something that scared even the scientists who proposed it. Will be changing what it means to be human, Jiho said during a meeting. Once we do this, we can't go back. Kersh will kill us all if we don't. Nari replied, what's the point of staying human if we're all dead? The vote was close, but it passed. Volunteers were called for. Thousands came forward: soldiers, pilots, engineers, people who understood that their species stood on the edge of extinction and were willing to pay any price to save it. Among the volunteers was a young man named Junho. He was a Marine, 23 years old, who had joined the military to protect people. He stood in line with hundreds of others waiting to be transformed. Are you scared? Asked the woman behind him, terrified. Junho admitted, but I'm more scared of doing nothing. The modifications took 3 days. When Junho emerged from the medical facility, he was different. His eyes had flecks of crystal blue in them. His skin had patterns beneath the surface, like circuit boards made of light. He could feel the technology in his bones, in his blood, in his thoughts. he was faster now, stronger. His reflexes were beyond human. When he picked up a weapon modified with technology, it responded to his thoughts, becoming an extension of his body. He was no longer just human. He was something more, and he was not alone. Across Earth and Mars, in every colony, thousands of volunteers transformed. They became humanity's answer to the Kesh, the first generation of enhanced soldiers, the angels of war. People started calling them, though Junho thought that name was ironic. The Vellani had been angels who brought peace. Humans had turned their gift into demons of battle. On Mars, Captain Hyan Wu stood on the bridge of his rebuilt ship. It was not the same vessel he had commanded before. It had changed, grown, evolved using Vani technology. Parts of the ship were almost organic now, pulsing with light and energy. It felt alive under his feet. They taught us kindness, Hyan Wu said quietly to his first officer, and we're turning it into war. They knew we would, his officer replied. They knew what they were giving us. The question is, did they give it to us because they thought we could win, or because they thought we deserved a chance to try? Before Han Wu could answer, alarms rang across the ship. The Kersh fleet had reached Mars orbit. Thousands of enemy vessels darkened the sky. The second battle was beginning, and this time humanity would fight back with teeth and claws made from kindness. Transformed. The Battle of Mars changed everything. When the Kersh attacked the second time, they expected the same easy victory. They expected human ships to shatter and die. They expected another massacre. They did not expect humanity to evolve. Junho was in the first wave. He stood in a drop pod with 40 other enhanced soldiers, all of them connected through Vani neural links. They could feel each other's thoughts, share reactions, move as one unit while remaining individuals. It was strange and frightening and powerful. 30 seconds to deployment, the AI voice announced. Junho checked his weapon. It was not a gun in the traditional sense. It was a device that could become whatever he needed it to be. The Anani technology responded to his thoughts, shifting form, preparing for battle. Remember, said their squad leader, a woman named Yunji, who had been enhanced longer than any of them. The Kersh expect us to be weak. Show them what kindness can become when it needs to. The pod launched. Juno felt the acceleration crush him into his seat, but his enhanced body handled it easily. Through the pod's windows he could see the Keresh ships, thousands of dark vessels surrounding Mars like a swarm of insects. Then he saw the human fleet, and he understood why people were calling this a new age. The ships were beautiful and terrible at the same time. They moved like living creatures, hulls pulsing with Vellani light. When the Kersh fired their nanomachine weapons, the human ship's armor adapted, hardened, learned what it destroyed. The old fleet simply made these ships stronger. Captain Han Wu stood on his bridge and watched the tactical display with cold satisfaction. His ship was connected to him now through neural implants. He could feel every system, every weapon, every bit of damage. It was like having a second body, made of metal and energy. All ships engage at will, he commanded. Show them we're not prey anymore. The human fleet opened fire, but these were not the same weak weapons from before. They technology had taught them to create weapons that adapted mid-flight, that learned from each impact, that got more effective the longer the battle lasted. Care ships began to die. It was not easy. The Karish were still powerful, still numerous, but for the first time, they were facing an enemy that could match them more than match them, an enemy that got stronger with every exchange. Junho's pod crashed into a Karish ship's hull. The metal around them began to dissolve immediately. The enemy's defense systems trying to break down the pod, but the pod was made of Ani technology now. It grew new armor, faster than the Karish could destroy it. The pod opened. Yuno and his squad poured out into the Karish ship's interior. It was like being inside a machine. Everything was dark metal and sharp angles. There were no corridors, like on human ships, just networks of passages barely wide enough for a person. The air was thin and cold, but Junho's enhanced lungs could handle it. Find the central node, Yunji ordered. We take out their coordination. They lose cohesion. The Karish defenders came immediately. They were not soldiers. They were machines shaped for killing. All sharp edges and weapons integrated into their bodies. They moved fast, attacked without hesitation. Junho met the first one with his morphing weapon. The device flowed into a blade in his hands, cutting through Karish metal like it was paper. He moved faster than he had ever moved in his old body, his enhanced reflexes letting him dodge attacks that would have killed a normal human. The battle inside the ship was brutal. Juno lost 3 squad members in the first 10 minutes, but they kept pushing forward, kept adapting. Every time the Karish used a new tactic, the enhanced soldiers learned from it and countered. They reached the central node and planted charges. Juno was the last one out, running through collapsing corridors as the ship began to tear itself apart from the inside. His pod launched just as the Karish vessel exploded in a ball of fire and debris. Around Mars, the battle raged for 6 hours. When it ended, the Karish retreated. For the first time in their millions of years of conquest, they had met an enemy they could not easily destroy, but the cost was high. Humanity lost 30 ships and thousands of soldiers. Mars itself was scarred, parts of the colony damaged by weapons fire. When Junho returned to the surface, he walked through streets where buildings had collapsed, where people were pulling survivors from rubble. A child saw him, saw his enhanced body with its crystal patterns and glowing eyes, and started crying. Her mother pulled her close, looking at Junho with fear. He understood he was becoming something that scared even his own people, but he was alive, and so were they, and that had to be enough. Commander MJI took control of the human fleet after the Battle of Mars. She was 40 years old, a veteran of the asteroid mining conflicts, and one of the first volunteers for full integration. Half of her body was now enhanced, connected directly to her flagship in ways that made her more ship than human at times. "We can't just defend," she said during a strategy meeting. "The Kesh will keep coming. They'll learn from each defeat. We need to take the fight to them." Admiral Tay, now 70 years old but still sharp, nodded. "We need to find their home systems, their production facilities. We need to hurt them where it matters. That means going deep into enemy territory," Nari pointed out. She was now a full admiral herself, in charge of strategic planning. "We could lose everything. We and LT Unk and GT LL lose everything if we stay here and wait," MJI replied. "They gave us tools, time to use them properly." The campaign began. Human ships, now more alive than mechanical, Pushed out from the solar system, they hit cache supply lines destroyed there. Mining operations attacked there. Forward bases, each battle taught them more about their enemy, each victory made them stronger. On Europa Minu led a resistance cell the Kersh had occupied the moon, using it as a staging ground, but Minu and his people used guerrilla tactics, hitting the enemy with hit-and-run attacks that the Kersh could not predict or prevent. Minu had been a farmer before the war. Now he was a fighter, enhanced like all resistance members, able to survive in Europa's harsh environment without a suit. The Vanni modifications had changed him, made him capable of things he never imagined. We're not just fighting for survival anymore, he told his team. After a successful raid, we're fighting to prove we deserve what the Vanni gave us. Across human space, a new voice emerged. Her name was Ari, and she was a broadcaster, someone who had become the voice of humanity's resistance. Every day, she transmitted messages to all the colonies, to all the ships, to everyone fighting. They offered us kindness, she said in her most famous broadcast. They gave us tools for peace, and we turned them into weapons for war. Some say this makes us monsters. I say it makes us survivors. The universe is not kind. The universe is brutal and dark and full of things that want to consume us. The Villani knew that. They gave us their gift because they believed we could become strong enough to matter. They believed that given the choice between extinction and transformation, we would choose to transform. So we fight, not because we enjoy it, not because we're cruel, but because we refuse to die quietly. We refuse to let kindness be weakness. We will take what they gave us and make it into something that lasts. We will survive, and we will remember. Her words spread across human civilization like fire. They became a rallying cry. Parents taught them to children, soldiers painted them on their ships. The message was clear. Humanity would not go quietly into extinction. By 2153, humanity had pushed the Kersh back to their original invasion points. What had seemed like an unstoppable swarm was now a retreating enemy, but the victory came with transformation. Every human who fought was changed. Every colony had been touched by war. The peace and prosperity of the Golden Age seemed like a distant dream. Junho, now a veteran of 20 battles, stood on the bridge of a human ship, looking at a Kersh world they had just conquered. The planet was dark and mechanical, covered in factories that had produced war machines for millions of years. Do we destroy it? Asked another soldier. Junho thought about the Vanni, about their message of kindness, about how humanity had taken that kindness and turned it into overwhelming force. We adapt it, he said. Finally, the showed us how to change. We'll change this place too. Make it produce something useful instead of something destructive. That's what we do now. We take what exists and make it better. It was a human answer, not destroying the enemy completely, but transforming them, making something new from something old. They had taught them to heal. Now humanity was teaching themselves to rebuild. But even as they won battles, even as they pushed the Kersh back, everyone knew the war was not over. Kersh were ancient and vast. This was just one fleet, one arm of a much larger entity. To truly win, humanity would need to strike at the heart of the enemy and deep in space on a ship headed for the Kersh core systems. Commander Mingi prepared for the final campaign. Her ship was barely recognizable as human technology anymore. It had evolved so much, adapted so far that it was something entirely new, like humanity itself. The Vanny made us eternal in myth, she said to her crew. Now we make ourselves eternal. Reality, we finish this war whatever it costs, the crew responded with determination. They were all enhanced. Now, all changed, all willing to pay the price for survival. The Kersh core systems were a graveyard of civilizations. Commander Me stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching the tactical display with eyes that were more crystal than human. Now, after 2 years of constant warfare, she had integrated so deeply with her ship that she could not tell where she ended and it began. Sometimes she forgot what it had been like to be simply human. Around her ship, the human fleet gathered 300 vessels, each one a masterpiece of adapted Vanny technology, each one crewed by people who had volunteered to become something more than baseline human. They were here for the final battle, and everyone knew that many would not return. The Kersh home system was vast, dozens of planets, all of them converted into machine worlds. Factories covered every surface, producing the weapons and ships that had consumed 47 civilizations. In orbit around each planet, defensive stations hung like dark stars. This is what they do, said Nari, who commanded the strategic division from a second ship. They take everything beautiful and make it into a machine for killing. They've been doing it for millions of years, then we stop them. MJI replied simply. Today here we end them. On Earth, Admiral Tay sat in a hospital bed. He was dying, his old body finally giving out, despite all the Vanny medical technology could do, but he had insisted on staying alive long enough to see this battle. Screens around his bed showed the human fleet preparing for the final assault. You did this, Hana said quietly. She sat beside him, holding his hand. They were both old now, both marked by years of war and transformation. You kept us alive long enough to become strong. The Vanny did this, Tay corrected. I just made sure we didn't waste their gift. He coughed and Hana could see it hurt him. Do you think they knew when they gave us that crystal seed? Did they know we would become this? Hana thought about the question. I think they hoped we could. I think that's why they chose us. The battle began with humanity's opening move. The fleet did not attack directly. Instead, they deployed something new, something terrible. Seeds made from technology modified for war launched toward the Kersh worlds. When the seeds landed, they began to grow, but instead of creating beauty and life, they created disruption. They infected the Kersh network, the hive mind that connected all their machines. The Kersh had evolved to be one consciousness. Humanity used that against them. The seed spread chaos through the network, made the Kersh ships fight each other, made their factories malfunction. It was a virus, but not for computers. It was a virus for consciousness itself. Junho was there leading a ground assault on one of the Kersh core worlds. He was a captain now in charge of a 100 enhanced soldiers. They landed on a planet that had not seen organic life in a million years. Remember, he told his troops, we're not here to conquer, we're here to dismantle, take apart their production, destroy their command centers, and get out. We don't need to hold territory, we just need to make sure they can't keep making more of themselves. The fighting was brutal. The Kersh threw everything at the human forces, machines that had destroyed countless species, weapons that had ended civilizations, but humanity had learned, had adapted, had become something that could match the ancient evil that had consumed the galaxy. Janho lost half his troops in the first hour, but they accomplished their mission. When his extraction ship pulled him from the burning planet, he looked back and saw the factories collapsing, saw the Kesh losing their ability to create more machines. In orbit, Commander Mi coordinated the fleet battle. The Kersh defense stations were powerful, but human ships were adaptive. Every time a Kersh weapon destroyed a human vessel, the other ships learned from it, evolved. Countermeasures became stronger. There. Faltering, Nari reported, the network disruption is working. The Kersh are losing coordination. Then we press the advantage. MJI ordered, all ships full assault, target their central nexus. We cut the head off and the body dies. The central nexus was a structure the size of a moon floating at the heart of the Kersh system. It was the origin point of their hive mind, the place where the consciousness that had destroyed 47 civilizations originated. Destroying it would not kill every Kersh machine, but it would shatter their unity forever. The human fleet charged forward, taking terrible casualties but never stopping. Ships died in fire and light, but their sacrifice meant others got through. Mi's flagship led the way, its hull scarred by 1,000 impacts, held together by veiny technology and the will of its crew. We're almost there, MJI said. She could feel her ship dying around her, feel the damage spreading through systems that were as much a part of her as her own heart. Prepare final assault. Package. The final assault was a weapon humanity had created from pure technology. It was not a bomb or a missile, it was a seed like the ones they had originally given, but this seed had been taught to grow differently too. Spread transformation not as healing but as termination. They fired it directly into the nexus. The seed penetrated the structure and began to grow, spreading through the Kersh network like light through darkness. Where it touched the Kersh consciousness unraveled. Millions of years of accumulated knowledge and evil began to dissolve. The Kersh screamed. It was not a sound, but a pulse of data across every frequency. It was the death cry of something that had thought itself immortal. When the nexus exploded, the shock wave destroyed everything nearby, including Mi's ship, but MJI lived long enough to see it, lived long enough to know they had won. Tell Earth, she transmitted. With her last breath, tell them the angels taught us well. The war ended on a Tuesday morning in March 2154. Exactly 7 years after the had first arrived, Admiral Tay died that same morning in his hospital bed, watching the final reports come in. The Kersh were not extinct, but they were broken, scattered across thousands of systems. Without coordination or purpose, they would never threaten another civilization. Hana held Tay's hand as he passed. We did it, she whispered. We survived. At what cost? Tay managed to say. Before he died, it was a good question. 50 years later, in 2204, humanity had spread across 200 star systems. Population was 70 billion, scattered across hundreds of worlds. Earth was still home, still the heart of human civilization, but it was no longer the only home. Every world had monuments to the great crystal structures that glowed in The dark temples where people came to remember the species that had believed in humanity when no one else did. Schools taught children about the day the angels came and gave humanity the tools to survive, but they also taught about the cost, about the people who had transformed themselves to fight, about Commander Mi and Captain Junho and thousands of others who had become something more than human to save humanity, about Admiral Tay and Hana and Wan and all the people who had lived through the transformation. They never returned, at least not in those 50 years. But humanity kept looking for them, kept sending messages into the dark, kept hoping that one day they could thank them properly. In 2204, a young captain named Wanho commanded a ship on the edge of human space. He was the son of Wanbin, who had been one of the first to see the arrive. Wanho had grown up on Mars, listening to stories about the gift and the war that followed. His ship encountered a new alien species. They were small, peaceful, technological, but not aggressive. When they saw the human ship, they were terrified. They had heard stories. Galaxy knew about humanity now, knew about the species that had destroyed the Kersh, knew about the warriors who had turned kindness into weapons. Wanho approached the alien ship carefully. He opened communications with the formal greeting protocols humanity had developed. We mean you no harm, he said. Once we were shown kindness by a species greater than ourselves, they gave us tools and asked nothing in return. Let us pass that forward. Let us offer you the same. The aliens were suspicious. You destroyed the Kersh, they transmitted back. We have heard the stories. You are dangerous. Yes, Wanho agreed. We are. The universe made us dangerous because the alternative was extinction. But being dangerous does not mean being cruel. We choose to use our strength to protect, not to conquer. He ordered his ship's weapon systems to power down. It was a gesture of peace. But even powered down, the ship hummed with potential. Thay technology was everywhere in human civilization now, integrated so deeply that it was simply part of what humanity was. Medicine and weapons, healing and harm, all from the same source. The alien ship cautiously accepted the peace offering. They exchanged information, culture, technology. It was a small moment, hardly noticed in the vast sweep of human expansion, but it was important. Because 50 years after the war, humanity was at a crossroads. They had the power to become conquerors, to do to others what the Kesh had done. Thay technology made them strong enough to dominate any species they encountered, but they chose differently. On Earth, in the great archives beneath the monument of First Light, Hana's granddaughter worked as a historian. She studied the original messages, trying to understand why they had chosen humanity, why they had given such powerful gifts to such a violent species. She found her answer in a message fragment that had been overlooked for decades.